Welcome to GovCon Unscripted, where we dive into the unfiltered stories and strategies from all around the world of government contracting. Join host Chelsea Roberts as she explores how to navigate, thrive, and win in this complex but lucrative industry.
Welcome to GovCon Unscripted. This is your host, Chelsea Roberts. Today's episode is a part of a series that we're calling Success After Service. We're featuring brilliant minds with wisdom to share from throughout the federal ecosystem, folks that served in the military and have transitioned out and found some success after their time, either in federal or military service. I hope that you enjoy this episode and the series, and if you haven't yet, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome back to GovCon Unscripted. I'm your host, Chelsea Roberts, CEO of Collaborative Compositions. And today I've got with us our first in-person interview, Brittinay Shaw, Marcom Executive for E&M Technologies. Brittinay, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm the Marketing and Communications Executive at E&M Technologies. Outside of marketing itself, and do a lot of employee engagement. That's what I did before. I had a company called Work Culture Consultant, and I did a lot of SWOT analysis, employee engagement, retention work. But thankfully, I had E&M as a client first, and as things went on and the economy started economying, the company was awesome enough to bring me on board full time. And I had a lot of background, obviously Air Force and then government contracting. So this was just a great segue into what I do now.
That's fantastic. So what did you do in the Air Force?
I was a jet engine mechanic first on F-117s, F-22s, and F-35s. So I have a lot of everything fifth gen, and I love that. But then I cross-trained actually to be the Secretary of Defense's flight attendant, which is not something normally people know about. Yeah. Air Force One, if you think about it, that's all Air Force people. It's not civilians. It's actually us.
Interesting. But how did you find out about that and what got you interested?
It's actually even there's a lot of people in the service and in the Air Force itself that have never even heard of it. Yeah. And I honestly genuinely can't remember how I found out. But once I found out about it, I'm like, oh, I want to do that. That sounds awesome. Because I came in to travel the world, and I'm from Arizona, and I got stationed in New Mexico and California.
Oh, jeez.
So I was like, I want to travel. Everyone has their different goals in the military. Mine was to grow, travel, and obviously the whole America and protection and stuff. But if I'm going to be completely honest, I just wanted to grow and be better. And the Air Force allowed me to do that. And so, yeah, that's where that went. And I did 8 years, and then I just felt like I got a lot out of it. The Air Force's core values are integrity, excellence in all we do, and service before self. And I wasn't really aligned anymore with that service before self thing because I did have to sacrifice a lot, and I was just frankly done with that.
Yeah.
I was missing out on a lot of family and career trajectory things that I wanted. So I just chose to bow out, but loved my time in for the most part, but was happy to become a civilian again.
Yeah, I can imagine. Especially not getting as much different sort of territorial experiences as you might have wanted there. Right. But what did you like about being a flight attendant?
So a lot of people, when they think flight attendant, they think just kind of commercial, Southwest, this is that. Yeah. But we actually went to culinary school. We cooked from scratch. On the jet. Yeah, we did catering sometimes, but that was still a whole process because I was on the E-4B, which is the doomsday plane, and it's a huge 747. And there's 90-something people on there. People can YouTube it, so it's nothing I have to worry about what I'm saying. I didn't know what project management was way back then, but that job is nothing but project management.
Interesting.
Because you have to make sure, let's say, because we weren't Air Force One, we didn't have fancy walk-in refrigerators. We had igloos. And so you have to think about your menu. If you have a 7-day trip, you can't have lettuce on the last day. Yeah. Just things like that you don't even think about. Making sure when we get to certain countries or places, we need ice. We need this stuff that you don't even think about. Of course, safety was paramount, and that was the biggest thing. Thankfully, we never really had many safety issues, so it was just cooking. We had 36-hour missions, and I'd be delirious at the end. It was a lot of hard work, manual labor, but it was amazing. Got to see so many different countries. I think I did at least 20 in a few years, 3 years.
Wow, that's incredible. And so did you have layovers? Were you in these places for any sort of amount of time? Did you have to stay at the plane? What that look like?
It varied, and of course I can only say so much, but Thankfully, there were some times that we could like land somewhere and the sec def would have to go do his voodoo and we would get to thankfully stay and hang out and go see the sights.
Yeah.
And so that was awesome.
Was there any desire to go into a similar line of work after you transitioned out?
I did think about it because a lot of the flight attendants that get out, they go and they don't do commercial, they go do like corporate, like the CEO of Nike, for example.
Oh, okay.
They have their, fancy corporate
Yeah.
Lear jets, and usually it's a really easy segue into that. But I didn't go that route. I just felt like I had a good time, learned a lot of experience, but it wasn't what I wanted to do forever. I just felt like for me, my life trajectory, I wanted something different. And then funny enough, when I got out, I wanted to be a dive master. Like that was my whole thing. My GI Bill, I'm going to be a dive master. Like what a segue.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I do not equalize.
Me neither.
Oh,
Yes.
have-
Yep. I've got the inner ear things
Yep.
too.
So I was like, that's not going to work being the dive master.
No.
And then the students are like, are you coming? So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, maybe that wasn't great. And I got a job with Pratt and Whitney, which
Mhm.
that's all the jet engines I worked on for the most part. And so I went and became a propulsion manager for them on the F-35 at Luke Air Force Base in Arizona, which is home. So it all worked out for me. It was a great segue out of the military.
Interesting. And then somewhere in there, you got married, right?
I got married 3 years ago. I'm so bad with dates. My husband now, I actually met him in tech school 19 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we were always just friends. We didn't date then.
Yeah.
We just eventually always kept in touch. And then I'm going to date myself, but MySpace and everything else. But he actually is still active duty. He's a good one. He stayed in. We're thankfully on our last little bit. I'm doing the military spouse thing now, which is weird being the veteran.
Yeah, I imagine. And you all are stationed local, at least to me right now. And what does he do?
He is an engine mechanic as well.
Oh, okay.
But now that he's in a leadership role, he's doing other leadership-esque things, superintendents and things like that.
Interesting. Do you get along with his job, and does it ever tempt you to come back in and do anything?
It actually just solidifies the right decision, but that's just a personal thing for me. I
Sure.
respect everyone's thing to stay in. Like when I got out in 2014, that's when the sequestration was happening. And there's a lot of people that got pushed out. And I could go off on a whole tangent, but short story long, when they took the people out of the military at that time, that was a continuity of the military backbone. And when you took a lot of that out, now the people who stayed in, such as my husband and my friends that are retiring or retired, they were all that was left, but they were doing more with less for so long. And it's just a lot. And we're all just trying to do the best.
Yeah.
That's what we have.
Yeah. Trying to keep going. That's one of the hardest things. And I found that's pretty common amongst folks that are, especially like in this day and age when the transitions are happening so much more rapidly and seems like in mass. Like over the past year, I can't count how many folks that I know that I thought were going to be lifers and they decided to transition out, and it was like the best time for them to choose to go. And like, how did you find your transition experience to be? Was it hard?
I thankfully, and I'm blessed for it, that I had an easy transition. And I know that's not always the case,
Yeah.
especially being on LinkedIn and just being not necessarily in the transition space, but having a lot of friends who are and seeing
Right.
everything. And so I'm appreciative for my segue out. It was smooth, but I know it's not like that for everyone.
Yeah.
But it was nice being a government contractor. As soon as I got out, I was free, but I was still with my people. So that was
Right.
good. And then eventually after that, I went to work in an aerospace company, a NASA contractor, because I wanted to just be more of a civilian.
Yeah.
This is now, let's keep going. So I've gone in and out of contracting a little bit in that sense, but then DOE worked for the Department of Energy down in Nevada at the Nevada test site. And that was super interesting.
Yeah.
And then did my own company, and now I'm doing this.
And what got you into Marcom?
So when I started Work Culture Consultant as a consulting company, I just used social media marketing to my advantage, like LinkedIn especially. I just started branding myself like crazy. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but I am people shot tequila, depending on who you are. And some people love me, hate me. It is what it is. But I used mostly LinkedIn to brand myself, and I saw what worked, what didn't work. Back and I had TikTok before I knew it was bad and
Yeah.
got rid of it. But like I used a lot of those different platforms just to get my message out there, and that provided me business. So I understood how it worked and just wanted to like help other people brand, because I understand you got to have your good culture in the first place. That's
Right.
one thing. Building it and then sustaining it, people need to know about it.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that was the thing I was good at, like getting people's companies' names out there. I figured out how to do it myself over something that's work culture. The fact that I even had 50,000 people interested in continuously coming back to see my content over work culture, which is usually a boring subject for people.
Yeah.
I felt like if I can find a company and help brand them, and they probably have a lot more interesting situation going on, I can help you thrive. And so that's how that kind of happened.
That's an interesting transition. Do you feel like you pulled lessons or experiences that you had while you were in the service to what you're doing now?
Yeah, yes. I guess there's just so many lessons learned all over the place from all the different things I've done. From the marketing standpoint, I would say that was, I guess, even in the service, because you have to, for lack of better terms, market yourself to be known,
Right.
to be picked for certain jobs and things like that. You can't just fly completely under the radar. You're never going to get anywhere. And it's a bunch of politics, and it can be frustrating for some people, and I absolutely understand that, but you got to do what works.
Yeah, play the game.
Even if I like it or not, I'm an introvert. So if I can do it, I know that anyone can do it. It's just taking that step and putting yourself out there.
And I feel like you're fantastic at that. I love watching your content on LinkedIn. You're so relatable. You're so authentic. And you don't just adjust yourself to pivot towards what every different person is. I want this, I want that, I want this content. You put out content that's just genuinely authentic that people really resonates with, especially I think within our age group, that keeps people's attention and it keeps them coming back. And you've really built yourself as one of these like Marcom's subject matter experts that can really speak with authority on a variety of topics, I'm sure. How do you feel like your technical knowledge has really helped you and helped enable you to build better content?
Starting off as a jet engine mechanic, everything was, if you do something wrong, you could kill someone.
Fair.
Which is pretty intense.
Yeah.
And that is the culture that they embed in you, and as it should be.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do things right, a pilot could die.
Right.
And that's like the last thing you want. So there's an attention to detail there and a pride that you put in your work. And I feel like there's lessons, I guess, even from that. I think it goes back to that technical, I'm not sure, just social media, like the editing, there's everything else like that, attention to detail. But I think more than, unfortunately, technical, because like I'm going to always give people their flowers where they're due. I have dyscalculia, so I'm not a math person.
Yeah.
So in that context, I know when to delegate or reach out to someone who is an expert in that sense so that I can tap into them, but still do my thing. You have to know when that's a thing. So even with certain editing for marketing, things like that, I'm not a graphic designer. Yeah, I can be in Canva all day and I can do good stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm not a graphic designer. I'm going to lean on someone who actually has that expertise and then use it, pay them, whatever, but use it to my advantage.
Yeah.
Because you can't do everything yourself. And I think a lot of business owners think they can do everything. And it's just, it's not the reality.
Yeah. I've run into that more times than I can count, where you've got a really like ambitious and enthusiastic business and maybe a serial entrepreneur who's, I could do this. They've got all their NAICS codes and you're just like, but which one do you do well?
Yes.
Which is your like area of expertise? What's your niche?
It's hard to market something when you don't even know what your strong suit is. Like,
yeah.
And I think that there's something in that too, the lessons learned of like, you can't be everything.
Yeah.
And that's whether it's a person or a company, it's all like, there's a lot of psychology, I feel like, from technical or whatever, getting into science, it's the psychology.
Right.
Marketing is a ton of psychology, and that's what I love. I didn't want to go into psychology, but I do love IO, like industrial organizational psychology. And I was able to take that like for my schooling and then bring it into marketing in that sense.
And that's so interesting. There's so few people that kind of really recognize like the psychology and like the psychological factors that kind of go into content, developing content. And I feel like that's so underrepresented. It's just these days, I feel like people just type into ChatGPT, make this go viral, and then for the best. And then they're like, okay, that didn't work. So how do I give feedback?
Everyone's doing it.
Yes.
So it's all the same boring garbage content, and hooks are huge. And that's a psychology thing. What am I going to say that's going to differentiate me? If we're just talking government contracting, what's going to differentiate me from other government contractors? You have to do something different, or else you're just going to be like everyone else and you're going to have that much harder of a time. But if you put yourself out there, people know who you are. It's people, especially if you have a good reputation,
right? People
are going to want to work with you, want to partner with you. And then from a recruitment marketing standpoint, which is a lot of what I do now, is we're branding our culture. Like our on-contract culture is amazing. And I genuinely believe that. So I push that out there for E&M Technologies. There's all these other subcontractors out there, but not many of them are treated well. But E&M Technologies is very good about taking care of their people. And that's what we got to brand that. There's so many reasons, but you have to figure out why you're branding what you're branding. And that's, I think, a huge part of it.
Yeah, and I see that so often. There's just names on paper, and that's like basically all they amount to is like the name on paper. They're really not there to do anything like sufficient or substantial, or like they're certainly not recognized for anything that they may do that may be above and beyond. And they're oftentimes just discounted. And I love that setting yourself aside and apart from the other folks is such a big thing. I was reading this thing the other day that our brains are wired for patterns. And if you break that pattern, if you stand out and do something that is just distinctly different, then you're going to be memorable.
Right.
And I think there's like the positives and negatives of that. You can set yourself aside in the good way, and you can set yourself aside in the bad way, and
True.
you can be positively remembered or negatively remembered. But like either way, you are memorable, and you become that sort of memorable name. And I can imagine though, it's hard because corporate memory and personal memory, folks like just have shorter memories, it seems like these days.
Oh,
And
yeah,
their attention
goldfish.
span, is so much lower.
And that's another part of social media now, like whether it's TikToks or Reels or videos on LinkedIn, like if you don't grab people's attention within 5 seconds,
Yeah.
you are done. They're going to keep scrolling. So you have to do something that's captivating, whether it's the graphics and catching them or the messaging or the hooks or the whatever. You have to, there's a science to it, but it's also art, and the art is the psychology.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's hard. It has to be hard to just keep trying to put out content that's advantageous and beneficial and useful kind of across the board. You get to a point where that's like, okay, if I can't catch everybody's attention every single time, I probably get pretty discouraged and trying to figure out, okay, what's going to work, what's not going to work. How long do you feel like it's taken you to figure that out?
And this is not to toot my own horn, but I felt like it came a bit natural.
Yeah.
Especially when I started doing the personal branding thing.
Mm.
I just don't have to learn the lesson too many times to figure it out.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing over and over again, that whole thing. So I saw what worked and what didn't work, but there was lessons learned along the way of, okay, I am good at getting myself out there, but are they understanding what I'm trying to get them to buy? Yeah. Influencer marketing is also a thing. There's levels to that as well. For example, Defense Unicorns just hired Stephanie, and she was at Metro Star. She was a recruiter for them, but she was branding. She was doing amazing marketing and branding for them by just going out. She was going out there and making a name for the business through her social media as a recruiter. And when I look at her, and I talk to other companies, I'm like, look at her. That's exactly what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
If you're doing what they're doing, like she's a prime example. And it just happened yesterday. I was so excited to see that for her, because like when a company understands the value that can add to their company, it's huge. Influencer marketing pulls people in. Yeah. And I know there's generational differences with social media and the understanding of it, but it's not going anywhere. So it's like Blockbuster, adapt or die.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean to be confrontational. It's just the truth.
It is very true. And I think that's a great slogan that I think should probably go on like bumper stickers with little dinosaurs. That's like adapter.
Right?
Yes, yes, yes. Because it's very true. It's very prominent. That's like a very common kind of misconception. And I feel like I hear it all the time. What we do today, what we did yesterday is not going to get us where we need to go tomorrow, basically. And like what we do today has to be some sort of mix and pivot and change in between to be able to make sure that what we're doing tomorrow is going to be more effective than what we did today and more effective than what we did yesterday. It's like an ever evolving process that you get into. And I feel like it just helps you grow. Like from day to day, it just helps you change, shift, pivot, and really adapt to new perspectives across the board. And also having those inputs, having a strong feed of material that like I know Stephanie, she's great. Like, I think that a lot of what she does is fantastic. And I borrow from that often because I'm like, let's look at good examples of what's working for people and like how it's working for them and what they're getting in terms of ROI, just so I don't get myself into a loop of just like one of those silos, like an echo chamber. That's just, no, you're doing the right thing, but it's really not paying off. Yes.
The numbers aren't there.
Yes. Yeah.
And they say all publicity is good publicity or whatever. And there is some truth to that. Obviously, you want your messaging to be right. Influencer, social media marketing, I know it's awkward for some people, but it brings the money in, it brings the people in, it brings the eyes in. Maybe they didn't even give two hoots about what the content creator like posted, but they were intrigued enough to be like, where does that person work? And then what is that about? And that's where the clicks come in.
Yeah.
So it is super important. And I'm just glad that more people are seeing the value in it, and especially in the government space, because usually the government is the last to get on board with this. But these government contractors, a lot of them are starting to see if you want to make money, you're going to need to put yourself out there.
For so long, it was just like the advertising was so dumbed down and downplayed because there's all this fear of, am I going to do something that might get me in trouble legally?
That's the hardest part with government contracting. Like, you can only say certain things.
Yeah.
Because of contracts or names of contracts, names of clients and stuff like that. And it's hard for people in marketing or in social media, because you really have to figure out ways around things to still try to get your brand out. And it is not easy.
No, it's not. It's not. And like, I have one example that I love to hold up as a great way to go about it without being as in your face as a lot of companies are. And it's so like, folks in government, they have kids. You can't market directly to these people. You can't go in and say, hey, let me buy you a t-shirt. Let me get you dinner. Let me like do all these things for you. But they have kids, and those kids may be like on a t-ball or a soccer team, and you can sponsor that team, and you can get your name on their jerseys, and you can have them. And all of those kids are like in front of these parents that are government contracting, like executives or folks within the government contracting realm. And so you can play that subliminal messaging where you've got your name in front of them on some sort of like regularity without actually stepping across the line of, okay, now we're like in dangerous territory with like far regulations and so forth when it comes to like marketing. I'm curious, like what you found has been an interesting way that you didn't really necessarily think of up front about getting your name in front of government contracting folks.
Some people find me abrasive, but my messaging is still, like you said, relatable. Everyone goes through things, but no one talks about it.
Yeah.
That's why my newsletter is called The Quiet Part Out Loud, because my entire career I've been that person to say the quiet thing out loud. It hasn't always benefited me. I've had to learn as I've matured and stuff to curb certain things. But who I am in my integrity, like I still want to stand on business.
Yeah.
There's just a way to go around that. But government contracting wise, that's how I got E&M. Like, they saw my messaging, they resonated with it, they understood that I really cared about culture and people, and the math was mathing. If you have a good culture, people, want to come to you.
Yeah.
They want to, it's not just about gaining them, it's about retaining them. That's really my messaging. Gain and retain top talent, not just my messaging resonated in that sense. They like, that makes sense. So clearly she has a methodology behind what she's saying. Cause like, I don't want to put my IP out there. Like, I know how to do it. I'm going to tell you, you're going to pay me. That's a business, but there's a way to do that. And then a lot of my clients actually never said anything in my comments, but they might have not even reacted to them or anything. It was, they saw it, they liked it, and we would message or call or whatever. And that's how business would happen. But just for people to know, just because people aren't necessarily saying anything or engaging with your content does not mean that's not going to be business, because 99% of the business that I got was from people who were pretty much lurkers.
That is what always surprises me. I'll jump on a call with somebody who I feel like I know them, but like I've never seen any of their like input, feedback, comments, like impressions, any of that stuff on any of my content. And then they'll jump on the call and they'll be like, I follow you so closely on LinkedIn. And I'm like, what? Really?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
You don't say.
I don't see you ever.
Yeah, no, and it just keeps everything in my being from being like, you might want to drop a comment. No,
right?
that's cool.
Me.
Help me help you.
Exactly.
So if you're lurking others, you can help your lurker friends be more into what I'm doing.
Just one like, just one, just a little like, you
just
don't
like
say anything.
And they're just like, yeah, I like to watch the content go by, and I'm like, okay, one of life's casual observers. I got it.
Yep.
And it's really surprising to hear you say that, because given that you've really done some amazing things for E&M, like you've brought their numbers up so far from what they were initially. I'm sure that there's so many that are doing the same thing on that front, and they're just lurking in the background, and like they call E&M and they're like, hey, we saw this and we want to do that. I'm curious, like, how do you find the attribution to be like, is it a challenge? Get that attribution from the material that you're doing into like what they find to be valuable or helpful?
And I'm going to get there with a little thing in the beginning.
Yes,
because again, are we focused more on recruitment marketing right now, or are we focused more on partnerships? And so understanding that messaging first, because we want possible teaming or even teaming partners to know who we are, because if they know our reputation, they want to come and do a bid with us or whatever. So I got to know which way we're pivoting. For us, it's a lot of recruitment marketing. Recently, I've been trying to, within the constricts of what we government contracts deal with, making ourselves attractive to prime holders, to teaming partners and things like that. And so if you don't understand the niche of those two things, you can't even go anywhere.
Yeah. I assume that it's got to be different and difficult to distinguish those differences between what's going to resonate with potential employees and what's going to resonate with potential partners. What are some of the tips that you typically give for folks that are trying to set themselves apart in either way?
So getting with your C-suite, people want to hear from C-suite. They just do. Because when people are looking for talent on LinkedIn or looking for a company on LinkedIn, they want to know what they're getting themselves into.
Sure.
So if you can posture your content to show the masses authentic, keyword, hashtag authentic content from your C-suite, people are more apt to, because like anytime I post something from our CEO, that gets the most views.
Interesting.
Yes. And it continues to prove my theory that people want to hear from the top, because whether it's, we're not talking about E&M anymore, but maybe some other CEOs at government contracting companies that you never hear from, you don't see anything, because people that are smart, or they know this information, they try to see what kind of culture you have. Are you walking the talk? Or can I go read or watch a podcast the CEO has been on to just feel the vibe? And I know that in government contracting, what do you mean vibe? But the reality is, like, psychology is still there. People do go off of vibes. If your spider senses are like, oh, I don't really with that person.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't want to work there because I don't. And again, that's what I'm huge about, like core values. If they're taken seriously and they were made correctly and stuff, using those to your advantage in marketing. Like, for us, innovation is one of the core values. We need to talk about things that are innovative within the company.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that, it's going to be hard for people to believe what we're saying. So it's like putting the content out, but like proof in the pudding. You can't just like, oh, values, because that's the same thing that people complain about. Oh, okay, you have that cool poster on the wall of your values, but you do nothing with it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. So like, I do think that people should brand their culture, but you got to make sure it's worth something in the first place. And you really need to define it. And that's where, like, I feel like my expertise in culture and people engagement, employee engagement, things like that is very important to the recruitment marketing space. Because for that angle of, obviously we want good talent and retain them, but also partners are seeing our retention rates or primes. Like, this is a good company to have on board because they can retain their people and we're not losing talent all the time.
Yeah.
So that's why there's so many different things to think about. And some people think, oh, she just does social media. No, it's a lot deeper than that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can tell already, and just by the content that you put out, that there's so much more that's going on the internal side that really makes that difference. And it's apparent that you guys embody your core values rather than just have a great slogan on the wall. And then you're constantly having riffs and constantly having layoffs and situations where it's like people question why they're still there or are worried about not being there in the future. It seems pretty apparent that you guys have a positive culture of retention, which it really comes through in the content, which is super valuable, because folks that are even looking to work there are going to see that and be like, okay, wow, this is a place that it's going to be safe for me to go and get involved and have that experience and not feel like, okay, they're going to hire me and let me go in like a year just because they're a churn shop.
And I feel like that happens a lot in the subcontracting space too. Because like when I got out, I was a subcontractor and I didn't even understand. That's the thing. And for those transitioning out of the military, you think you understand contracting. I don't know if you do, because I thought I did. And then I got out and I'm like, I thought I was an employee of Belkin Engineering. No, I wasn't even theirs. I was a 1099. I didn't understand any of that.
Yeah.
And then thankfully Pratt & Whitney picked me up pretty quick from them. But there's just so many levels to these things, and not taking social media seriously in 2026 is a great way to, and I'm not saying it's the only way, but it should be part of your marketing.
Yeah. And it can probably be a make or break too. If no one knows about you, if no one hears about you, sure, we've got all these stealth companies that are like, we're doing this intentionally and it's on purpose because we don't want anybody to steal our ideas or steal our IP. But if you've been in the game for a while in the government contracting and no one knows who you are, you're missing something. You're missing a spice or a flair or a secret ingredient that's really going to help you.
Uniqueness.
Yeah, some critical part of that value that folks just don't know. And I think that there's like a lot of folks that kind of misunderstand that context and that whole vibe. You don't want to put yourself out there and be showboaty. You don't want to be a trendy in that traditional sort of influencer marketing way. You don't want to just say, here's my new Shark hair curler and you guys should buy it, right? But you want to get your saleable aspects out there so that the masses can recognize like what you're doing. Because in this day and age, CPARs really aren't going to cut it anymore. And given that whole system is going to be reworked, like that's not
The only
a
way.
reliable marketing engine anymore, right?
There's just so many ways for this cookie to crumble, and I just hope people tap into it. And even outside of social media, just going back to the basics of what are we trying to accomplish here. And it's important to have buy-in from the top. And that's a huge part, like the collaboration that needs to happen, like with me and I always work with the BD team and the capture team, because our messaging needs their messaging. I need to be able to put it out there in a way that's palatable to the masses. There's a lot of, it just is what it is. There's a lot of boring stuff in government contracting. There is. Finding a way to make it attractive is not easy, but it's doable. It can happen. There's so many companies out there that I'm highly impressed by. I'm like, you get it. You get it. And they're thriving. The proof's in the pudding.
If you can make it into a meme, it will inevitably be a little bit more catchy and get a little bit more attention than just the flat affect of, we did great on this project. Here's to another great opportunity team. Like there's a lot to be said about being able to convey that messaging in multiple ways and across like uniformly across the organization. So everybody's projecting the same image, saying the same thing, and making sure it's like that cohesive value and brand recognition that you're looking for.
And with the whole generational differences things, like there's great in all and there's funny in all, but at the end of the day, the reality is a generation is retiring right now. And we have a lot of younger folks, Gen Z and Alpha, and now Alpha is starting to come into the workforce. And recruitment marketing, you need to know from, again, this is psychology, what is that generation as a whole, what's bringing them in these days. And you want to be able to bring them in for their talent. And if you can't do that, someone else is going to do it. Exactly. And there's a lot of Gen Zs out there with their own companies now. And they're doing, and it's not even to say that they're better than you, but they're getting more business because they're putting themselves out there. And eventually, hopefully for them, like the experience, they'll get it along the way. But if people are sitting there being like, we're better than them, we have a lot more knowledge, a lot more than that. And I know it's frustrating. Because there was even frustration with me. Like, I'm not a Navy SEAL. So people don't take necessarily what I say as serious as a Navy SEAL because I wasn't a SEAL. But it still was what it was. People are attracted to certain messaging, certain things. And so if you're not a SEAL, you've got to figure out a way to still make things attractive, your messaging attractive. There's certain things you're going to have going for you. There's certain things you're not. And you just got to be able to pivot.
And lean on the things that work for you and don't be afraid to try new things if what you're doing isn't working. I think that's absolutely one of the best lessons that I've seen in the whole of Marcom is if it's not working, try something different. And if that doesn't work, try something different.
And then stay doing the same thing over and over again, expecting
like
silly.
Exactly.
And then, and of course there's always the professionalism aspect, and I can be a silly goose, but I can also, I work for the Secretary of Defense. I know how to be professional.
You can be a serious goose.
Yes, I love that. Exactly. I can do both. Hashtag be both. But people just want relatability. And I'm very grateful for all the feedback I have gotten from people. And it usually is that, your message resonates because it's just personable. And I'm happy that's the case because that's what I want. And if I'm going to give advice in the Marcom space, is find a way, even if I have to be extra professional, to be as authentic as possible. Find a way to, within your certain constraints, get your message out there in a relatable way, because bland, hey, we're a defense contractor. No one cares. There's 1,000 of them.
Yeah.
You got to do something different. You need to have good relationships with your C-suite, understand their personality, understand their likes and wants, so that you can take their culture, how they are, and find messaging within that. There is something, for example, like EW and EW, electronic warfare.
Yep.
We have someone, Christelle, she's in our talent department, and she goes that route. And we just had Jean, our CEO, go and speak at one of their events, and women in government contracting and engineering.
Yeah.
There's something there. We need to take that message and we need to put it out, which we'll be doing soon. But it's stuff like that. Find these things that will resonate with people. It might not get everyone, but it's going to get those women in government contracting. But in it, maybe they'll just follow you off of that alone, and then you got them. You find those. There's going to be a lot of different things. That's just a quick example.
Yeah. I love that. I love how much you've done for E&M. I love your content, and I love the way that you show up really authentically on your platforms. I think it's really fantastic. And I'm thinking that there's a lot of our audience that's going to want to talk to you about how they can do that themselves. So if they want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Of course, I'm on LinkedIn. So my name is spelled very unique. It's Brittinay and then S. But you'll easily find me usually on there. That's honestly the best way to get a hold of me. Just come in the comments. I'm always happy to reach you out that way, because you usually stay away from my inbox. It's shenanigans on there, but that's how you can find me.
I love that. And then if they want to reach out to E&M, how do they get a hold of E&M?
E&M That's our website, but also on our LinkedIn as well. E&M Technologies, great way to see all our content on there, see what we're about, because we are in the intel space, cybersecurity, multi-domain ops, lots of different areas that we have amazing talent that we're 84% veterans.
Wow.
So if you're transitioning out of the military, it's a great segue to be around your people, but be a civilian now.
Yeah.
And so there's just a lot out there that we put out within our domains, but also within our culture. We like to have, I'm not gonna lie, we have amazing holiday parties that are 10-10. Really try our best to make our people feel appreciated. We're really good at spot bonuses, really good at things like that, which I love to see.
Yeah.
People appreciate it. Like, I do all the surveys and I see all the feedback we get. Hopefully it's usually very good.
Yeah.
But HR department, one of the biggest sticklers for HR, because it's a people space.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing it right, you're going to upset me. But thankfully, this HR team has been so good, like genuinely like caring for people, because our motto is people first, mission always, and they genuinely embody that. And I have very rarely been able to say that about a company. So there's a lot in there as well, because there's a lot of people who don't like HR.
Yeah.
And understandably so, with unfortunately a lot, but we thankfully have an HR team that employees rave about all the time. Like almost every survey, I love HR. I'm like, I've never seen this in my entire career.
Wow. That is definitely something to talk about, for sure. This has been a fantastic conversation. I got to say, I appreciate you making the trip up. I am going to snag our little on-air expert here.
We love the babies.
Yes. So first appearance on the pod. And I really appreciate you making the trip up. It's been fantastic having you on the show. For those of you who are new to the podcast, this is how it goes every week. We've got a great unscripted conversation that we have with experts in the industry. They don't always come over, but I love when they do. And don't forget to share, subscribe. And if you've got a chance, leave a comment on your favorite podcast platform. And like I like to say, do your part, leave a heart. Thanks for listening, and come back next week for the next episode of GovCon Unscripted. Thanks all.
Thanks for listening to this episode of GovCon Unscripted with your host, Chelsea Roberts. Do you have a GovCon story or need guidance in government contracting? Connect with Chelsea on LinkedIn to be a guest on the show or to enhance your business strategy. Don't forget, your network is your net worth. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your growing GovCon community.